Hello, Year 5, welcome back. This is the second history lesson in a series of 10 based on the theme of community. And today we'll be revealing exactly what our topic is for the remainder of our sessions. Let's make sure that we have everything we need to begin today's lesson. Are you ready? You'll need something to write with, a pen, a pencil, and something to write on. Maybe you've got a book that you can use, just some plain paper. Pause the video if you need to go and collect those items before we continue with the rest of today's lesson. Last time we finished our session by looking at this image here, the image of a ship known as the Empire Windrush. And we also talked about that theme that's running through these series of lessons, the theme of community. Today we're going to be looking at this picture in closer detail, as well as a series of others, all photographs based and taken between the years of 1948 to 1956. We'll be thinking about what this has to do with Britain, but also what this has to do with what we've learned about chronology and some of the events that had happened beforehand. That will start to give us a clue as to why the Empire Windrush became so important in British history. We're going to look at 4 different slides. This is the first slide, and you can see at the top here I've put 1 out of 4. For this session, you may wish to take one page in your notepad and divide it into 4 equal sections. You can label them 1, 2, 3, and 4 if you like, or if you'd prefer, simply use bullet points in the margin. For each of these slides, we're going to be generating a series of questions, things that have made us curious, things that we want to find out, things that maybe we're unsure about. And those questions are going to be about what we see in the picture themselves, but could also be about how that picture links to this idea of community, or also links to some of the events that were happening in Britain around that time. To help you, I've got these 2 hands, 2 high fives, and each one of those digits, fingers or thumbs, gives you a word of which you could use to start your question with, these question stems. I'm going to show you how you can use those to build your questions. Now, some of these question stems are far easier to use than others, and we won't be able to use all of them for every single picture. Let's have a little look at what it might look like if we did. Here are my 10 questions. Who are the people on the ship? What is the importance of the word London on the ship? When the people leave the boat, what are they expecting to happen? You can see how we're using those W questions, who, what, when, to begin each of our questions. And I'm remembering that because it's a question, I'm placing a question mark at the end. I wonder if you can think of a where question for this picture. Have a little think. Jot it down in your notebook. Here's my question. Where is this ship sailing to or from? I can see the word London on there, but I wonder if it's going to London or from London, or has nothing to do with London at all. What about a why question? Can you think of one? Here's one I've come up with. Why are there so many people on the ship? We could also challenge ourselves with the next handful of questions. Could, should, would, is, and does. These can be a little tricky though. Don't worry. Maybe ask an adult or an older sibling to help you generate some questions here. Could the Empire Windrush be an important ship? Should. Should I? Should they? Should the people on the shore be waving goodbye or hello? Are we welcoming this ship? Or are we sending it off on a journey? Have a think about a question that begins with the word would. Would I? Would we? Would you? Would they? Here's an example for you. Would anyone be allowed to travel on this ship? I wonder. Maybe they're only setting sail with people with particular skills or for a particular job. Is this a celebration? They all seem to be waving. They all seem to be happy. Or are they asking for help? Now, this is a tricky one. What have we got? Does this ship travel to places in Europe or further? You can also come up with a question using that how. Can you think of a how question? How many people? As we look through the next three slides, you're going to be generating some of your own questions. Pick 2 or 3 from the slide in front of us to add to your notes. Maybe you can come up with better ones. Maybe you have more questions to ask about this picture. Let's move on. Here is our second set of pictures. You can see it's the second, as I've got 2 out of 4 at the top here. Like I said before, generating 11 questions for every single slide is quite a lot. So I'm going to ask you to pick maybe 3 or 4 of our question stems, okay, to generate your questions about these 2 pictures. Take a close look at them. Who can you see? What are they doing? Where might they be? And I wonder what this has to do with that theme of community. This image down at the bottom here is actually a photograph taken in my locality. It's taken in Southampton. I wonder why there's so many people in Southampton. I wonder where they've come from. It'd be interesting to know, does this affect the local community? I've chosen my 3 questions. Have you? Stop the video now if you want to take some extra time to think about your questions and jot them into your notebook. Here are my questions. What has made everyone so happy? Do you notice all their smiles? Why does the policeman look so grumpy? It's definitely different to many of the other faces in our photos. Maybe it's just been a long day. Is everyone happy to be in Southampton in the UK? Let's look at our next slide. Here's the third image. And again, this top picture here, these two ladies and a young man are currently reading a newspaper, is also another one that was taken here in Southampton. I'm starting to think and see some things that could be some clues about what else was going on in Britain around this time. When I think back to the chronology of events. Again, choose 3 or 4 of these question stems to start your questions for these images. Challenge yourself to try 3 different ones from your previous go. Remember, not all of them will be easy to generate. Here are some of my questions for these images. What are they reading the newspaper for? Local news? For the weather? Jobs? Or just for something to do? Could these ladies be some of the first people to work for the NHS? We know that in 1947, the idea of the NHS was just beginning, and in 1948, it was founded. And off the back of that, how did it feel to work for the new health service, the NHS, if they were? Pause the video now if you'd like more time to generate your questions. Here's the fourth and final slide. Here I've tried to kind of bring all of those images together, but I've matched them with a map this time. A map that shows you the journey that the Empire Windrush went on and many other ships just like it. You can see some very specific dates on the map, but also the names of some places that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't. Let's have a look at it in closer detail. We've got a number 1 down here in Trinidad. You can see here there are 194 passengers were on board in May 20th, 1948. And it's heading over towards Kingston. And here you've got the Caribbean Isles. And on May the 27th, 7 days later in 1948, 599 more passengers join. So now we have a total of 793 people. The ship then goes on towards Mexico to gain more passengers and then heads over to Bermuda for another 168 passengers and then makes the journey all the way over to the UK, where it disembarks at various ports. On this journey in particular, it ends its journey in Essex, Tilbury Docks. But as I've explained and mentioned earlier, some of these ships, including the Windrush, would have stopped in Southampton as well. So now that we know the journey that this ship went on, and we've got the images here around the map, we can start to make some links, maybe answer some of the questions that we had from the earlier slides. We've definitely got a sense of different communities coming together. Over to you. Have a little look at those question stems now. What questions do you have? Fill in that final section on your notepad or in your book, and choose 3 or 4 more questions to generate about the map and maybe the people in them. Feel free to pause the video if you need extra time for this. I know that some of my questions would be, why were they making the journey to the UK? What was so desirable about working or coming to the UK? Why would they leave their hometowns behind? Would I have made the same decision as them if I was in their shoes? How did it feel to leave the place where they'd grown up to travel to somewhere almost on the other side of the world? It certainly would have felt like it. What were they expecting to find? It's definitely got my curiosity going. Have you got your questions written down? Have you tried a new question stem? Time for us to reflect on all of those thoughts and questions and what we've seen today. The Empire Windrush was one of a fleet of ships that brought people to Britain from Caribbean countries between the years of 1948 and 1971. Question 1, and you can answer this in your notebooks. Why do you think people were coming over to Britain at this time? Have a think about what was going on in Britain maybe just before 1948, or maybe in 1947. Question 2. How might the British community have felt about their new arrivals? And question 3. What advice would you give to the new arrivals about living in Britain? What kind of things might they need to know or need help with, or might find amusing? What things might they need to get used to? Think about your answers first before you start writing. Again, these are your thoughts, so there's no right or wrong answer here, but it's always good to fully explain yourself. Tell me why you think that. And if you're unsure, explore the idea. I think this, but I also think this as well. It's okay not to know exactly what the answer is. And we'll definitely be finding out exactly why in our next few lessons. Stop the video to take your time to really answer these questions in detail. Welcome back. I'm going to leave you there today, but with a little sneak peek as to our first task tomorrow, that little starter activity. We're going to be looking at which one of these characters is the odd one out. Mr. William Shakespeare, Roald Dahl, and Henry VIII. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.